Well, good day to you. Thank you for joining. We'd like to thank all of our attendees and our panel for making time today to be a part of this webinar with ObserveAI, City Cruises and BEK Networks. I'd like to run over some of the rules of engagement so that we can all be aware of how we're going to interact throughout the course of this webinar. So first, if you'd like to engage and interact, which we would like you to do, if you'll please use the Q&A panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. We'd love to take questions from you and understand how you're engaging with the topic that we're going to discuss today. If you'd like to access some of the webinar materials that we're going to cover, we're going to send those out by email to all the registrants after this session concludes. This session is being recorded, and we are going to send out $25 Uber Eats gift cards to all the attendees who remain through the course of the webinar. And we're also going to raffle a GoPro Hero 9. But the caveat to that is we're going to raffle it to folks who engage in the Q&A and in the chat portion of the webinar. So if you'd like a chance to win the GoPro, we'd ask that you please interact, give us your feedback, give us your commentary, and one of you is going to have the chance to win one of those really cool GoPros. So thank you all for attending. I'd like to now run through all of our panel so that you can get an idea of who we have today to cover this topic. So first up, we have Christian with ObserveAI. Christian, can you please give us your background and what you do for ObserveAI?
Yeah, hey. So I lead the solution engineering function at Observe, working through InfoSec integration and how Observe would actually work for our customers. My background is I've been in the contact center technology space, moving like big legacy on-prem solutions to the cloud for the last 10 years.
Yeah. And so we also have Dan from City Cruises. So Dan's our guest of honor. It's always great when you can have an actual customer share their experiences and how a tool helps them grow their revenue. So Dan, please give us your background and what you do for City Cruises and a little bit about City Cruises as well.
Sure. Thanks, Daniel. Pleasure to chat with you all today. With City Cruises, I've been with the company for a little over 9 years. Started on the restaurant side, dining cruises, real fun to get out there on the water, and moved over to the contact center side a few years ago. I work in training management. I do a lot of quality assurance and make sure that not only we're learning the correct product, but delivering it in the correct way. So a lot of hands-on coaching and continually building up the team. City Cruises as a company, we're one of the nation's largest dining cruise companies. The majority of our business is in that 2 to 3 hour experience getting out on the water. We're in the business of creating unforgettable memories, really building up those unforgettable experiences for our guests.
Fantastic. Hey, Christian, Dan, let's share a fun fact about you guys because we want to have fun on this and we'd like for all of our attendees to have some fun too. So Christian, what's a fun fact about you?
Fun fact, I haven't cut my hair since the pandemic started, and an unintended consequence is that in the summertime, your ears become very warm.
Yeah. Well, you certainly have some beautiful flow, so we appreciate that. Dan, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm a Chicago guy. I've lived in the city for about 10 years, but before moving to Chicago, I'm from very rural Pennsylvania. My hometown has more cows than people.
That's what's up, Dan. I'm from very rural Alabama originally, and there are just more cows here than people in general, the whole state. And I'm Daniel Beckworth with BEK Networks. We are a coast-to-coast provider that helps companies with their IT needs. Christian, let's talk about ObserveAI. Give us some background of your company and how you help customers.
Yeah, so Observe, it's a contact center AI company that helps call centers and contact centers analyze 100% of interactions for sentiment, agent performance, what things are customers asking for, what's their feedback, are agents following the right disclosures and scripting and flows that you want them to, and evaluate those interactions and coach the teams to make them better.
Yeah.
It's a 4-year-old startup that's been growing at explosive speed, and we work through various partners and enterprise direct customers, like some of those that you see here.
Yeah, you're certainly in a space that is growing rapidly. We've seen since the pandemic that call volume or just volume for contact centers is on the rise at a pretty rapid pace. And your tool allows companies to make sound business decisions with real data and analytics. And it's focusing on what is your most important data, your customer data. So it's a fantastic tool, and we're so glad that you've all made the time to be here. So again, I'm Daniel Beckworth with BEK Networks. We are a coast-to-coast provider, and we help businesses just like yours with their IT needs. So we like to evaluate what you have currently in your environment, and we like to help you do a couple of things. We want to give you a better product with a better service, and we want to help you build efficiencies, and we also want to help you do it for a lower price. So we love working with customers to meet their needs. And we're customer friendly and customer first. So thank you all for attending. Let's jump in and let's start running through some of the questions. And again, as we ask these questions, we would love for you, our guests, to give us some feedback. Jump in the chat, let us know what you think. And again, we're going to raffle a GoPro to one of you lucky folks who jumps in and gives some commentary. So, Dan, Christian, let's talk about this. Dan, this is primarily for you. Since the pandemic has started, we know it's changed the way we do business. What are some of the post-pandemic challenges that you're facing as we roll into 2021 and we see some light at the end of the tunnel?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Daniel, like a lot of people that are listening in today, I'm sure that I've experienced something very similar. It's been kind of a roller coaster, right? We go from this booming business, some of our busiest quarters ever, the really gearing up for a summer of these amazing experiences, as I touched on, and we go from that to everything shut down. So with that, we went 100% virtual at that time as well, from a 100% in office setting. So it was a really quick turnover to having that face-to-face contact, to having that one-on-one contact, to nothing, right? So we have to figure out how we can use this virtual environment to leverage positive performance from our agents and make sure that kind of some of the skeleton staff that we have remaining are really built up, enforced, coached appropriately, and they still have that one-on-one contact without being physically in the same room. So those are some of the biggest challenges, especially for me being like that kind of engaging personality, trying to be that presence, and then figuring out how to do so behind a screen and
Yeah.
what tools we can use to leverage that personal environment still.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Do you feel like Observe AI has helped you achieve some of those goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the usage of Observe, we get to kind of have that same in the room feel with our agents, and we have that direct feedback, and we have that direct pull to the side really quickly for that one-on-one coaching through the coaching tools that Observe has. So we've been able to leverage still that kind of environment of that continual coaching, that continual tracking, and while you're not next to them listening to the call that they're on, or you can't overhear those little nuances, you can utilize Observe to pull out those moments as well, and search those moments and search for those touches that we want our agents to have with our guests over the phone. We're able to see that pretty quickly.
Yeah, the beauty of the product or the tool is that you can literally analyze 100% of calls. So that's fantastic, and it's so powerful. I often see businesses trying to make decisions and they don't have any of this data. They don't analyze calls, or if they're doing it manually, it's an extremely small percentage of the call volume. So it's hard to make business decisions without the information that you're able to pull out of a tool like Observe AI. So I'd like to hear from our attendees. What are you folks struggling with post pandemic? And Christian, what are you seeing on your side? You're the smart guy.
Well, I don't know about that one, but fundamentally, agents now becoming decentralized has added a lot more problems. I don't know if you can hear in my background, but awkwardly, there's a chainsaw going on in the background with an arborist at my neighbor's house. That's one example of problems that an agent might have working from home. But when agents are decentralized, they're no longer working together in these large facilities. they can't raise their hand anymore to ask for help. They're not overhearing other conversations, which subtly gives them kind of tips on what they should be saying. The teammates aren't physically in close proximity to each other. This has led to fundamentally a widening variance of agent talk tracks, the things that they're saying, and they all kind of go down their own paths. And so what we've been seeing is there's been additional focus on the QA function and the coaching function to ensure that the right things, whether that's branding, disclosures, verifying the customer, are they being empathetic, are they doing the things that can drive real CSAT? There's been a real focus on QA on these items to make sure that it's being done at scale, because now agents are all dispersed. Another thing that we've seen is there's been a downward trend in employee engagement, specifically agent engagement. Our data indicates, and we have a report that's available, that 42% of agents actually feel less engaged today than they did 1 year ago, pre-pandemic. And so what's happening is this is putting pressure on companies to direct more of their attention to frontline employees. And we've seen things like Zoom webinars, things to get people together. But the thing that we've found is most productive on driving that employee engagement is like one-on-one micro coaching. And so finding ways to like highlight the good things that they did, and pull out those moments from that needle in a haystack calls, and really give them that one-on-one attention. We've seen a lot of focus there.
Yeah, and I hear that chainsaw in the background. It sounds pretty rad. Last week, we're all learning how to do business in a pandemic world. Last week, my son ran into my office and shot me in the face with a Nerf gun while I was on a Zoom call. So I completely understand. Dan, let's jump back to you. What did your process look like before ObserveAI? Was it a premise-based solution? Just give us some feedback about what you had in place and what it looked like.
Sure. Yeah. So before Observe, and Observe for us was a very big breath of relief, because the process that we were using before was like super spreadsheet based, tracking everything, making sure that numbers were plugged into our score sheet, and then from there they were put in our Excel sheet that had 100 formulas to calculate it correctly and crunch the numbers and make sure everyone's percentages came out correctly. It was like a kind of a hybrid of using a cloud system to store the calls, but a lot of the maintenance on our accounts was done internally. So we had to figure out if it was the call system that was providing the error, or if it was the recording program that was providing the error. And we didn't have 100% of calls recorded. And as those of you that work in a talk desk know, it's that one call that didn't record that has the information that you need for the guest. So it's going back and forth, trying to figure out what it is, where it is that the shortcomings are coming from, to figure out why your calls aren't recording for specific agents and things. So it was a lot more number crunching. It was a lot more manual before we had kind of a one-stop shop that held everything that we need for call recording, call scoring, and coaching from the scored calls.
Yeah, Dan, you're touching on some really important aspects of automating and utilizing a contact center to its full potential. So, Christian, let's talk a little bit about the manual and random process that Dan was having to work through. What are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, so typical quality assurance in a typical contact center, no matter what the size or scale, is the QA listens to X number of calls per agent per month. Typically, it's under 1%. And like Dan was noting, they fill out a spreadsheet of what happened. And then the supervisors take the results from that spreadsheet and coach based on that. And so like a few problems that are obvious, like one is if you're doing less than 1%, 99% of the time, you're not going to find that call that you wanted. But then the probably bigger problem is if you see that certain agents are doing something wrong and you want to find out why, you literally have to go back and re-listen to every single one of those calls. It's just not feasible. And then the other problem is if the business wants insights like, hey, how often are customers mentioning that the price is too high, or how is their reaction to the most recent marketing campaign? listening to calls one by one, you just can't physically do that. You can't come up with good data, and you can't come up with good, business drivers to know what to do with. But with a company like with a product like Observe, you now have every single thing that every customer agent has ever said. There's sentiment behind it, and if you want to know what's going on, you can get it in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So for our attendees, let's hear from you. What are you doing today? Is it a premise-based solution? How are you running through your calls? Is it extremely random? Is it manual? We'd love to hear how you're handling that. Dan, back to you. How are you using Observe AI today? What are some of the unique things that you're doing with the tool?
Yeah, we've been able to, and again, if we jump back to the nature of the world for the past year plus, we were able to utilize the moments to really pull out what our guests were asking about. So how frequently COVID came up on a call, how frequently a refund came up on a call, how frequently these different kind of touch points came up on a call, and then how we were responding to them. So if you're able to centralize this group of calls, then you're able to see what the reaction to this group of calls is, instead of, like Christian was touching on, just going from this giant pile of
Yeah.
calls and trying to pick out that needle in a haystack, as we touched on earlier. We've been utilizing Observe to really continue to coach our agents up. We've been dabbling in the coaching aspect and the coaching side of Observe too, as I saw a question come up in the Q&A, to kind of schedule some continual coaching with our agents, set an action plan, and have that, okay, by this time we're going to have this worked on and we'll have this time set aside. So all
Yeah.
doing that inside of the platform is something that before Observe, we kind of have had to go 16 different places to do so. So we're really trying to take Observe as this one-stop shop and utilize it for everything. And it's exciting because the continual developments and the continual growth is helping us take one thing that had to go over here and plop it right in the center in something that we're already using.
Yeah, part of the beauty of the tool is that you can schedule training, but you can also do training and coaching on the fly. So you can run through a call and through the recording and analyze it, and then immediately offer feedback for your agent. So your agent performance is going to increase as a result, and yeah, your calls are just going to become much more successful. Dan, back at you again. What did the implementation look like for City Cruises?
Yeah, implementation was pretty streamlined, pretty easy. It's to have an agent to have access to Observe is a simple toggle on. It doesn't have to be a technical person to set them up and get them rolling with Observe. We have And the implementation with the team was pretty cool too. We had the long decision making process for who our call recording software and who our AI would be to go through it and record our calls. And then once we hit the ground running, we had a rep from Observe actually come out, talk through our team, let us know the best ways to implement the program, the best ways to leverage it, and the continual kind of the group meetings that we have, just kind of bi-weekly checkups to make sure that the details of the product, what new implementations are there, and new ways that we could leverage the product to really deliver a solid call to our guests have been some really helpful things in the implementation.
So, Dan, you just offered some solid gold right there that I want to run through a couple of points for the attendees, and I'd love to hear from the attendees some of the pain that they felt from a migration like this. What I've seen in the contact center world is that migrations are often painful and they're not streamlined, like you mentioned, and it's really complex, and it takes a rocket scientist to set things up and to make changes for a traditional premise-based solution. And then finally, the ongoing support that you're describing is crucial. That's really what helps you get your value out of the tool and product and helps you grow. Christian, on your end, as the smart guy with Observe AI, what do implementations look like for you?
Yeah. So it's been a change. So it used to be that implementations were all about like infosec, procurement, and getting tech resources behind it. But now with like a very modern like framework where it's like one click integration now, all that work's been done.
Yeah.
So integration focuses entirely on what are the business outcomes that Dan and City Cruises are looking to get. They want their agents to go from being order takers to sales professionals. They want to QA more calls and drive agent performance. And the entirety of onboarding is dedicated to the business drivers. It like technology is in the background; it just works, and so we just focus on what's that business outcome that you're looking for. Is it a reduction in average handle time? Is it an improvement in CSAT? And we teach your team how to find those things inside the tool and drive that performance.
Fantastic. That is, again, Christian, solid gold. Dan, you've had the product for a while now. It's been rolled out. You're continuing your ongoing support. What are some of the results that you've seen so far?
Yeah, the results were really instantaneous, and one of the coolest things that we were able to, once we started churning and burning and scoring calls and scoring calls within the program, we took a step back after like a 2 week process update, and we had scored 40% more calls in the first 2 weeks with Observe than we did over the entire month the month before using our old platform. So it was pretty instantaneous, and that's with the time of learning a new program, which
Yeah.
wasn't much time at all because it's pretty user friendly as is. So we were able to really quickly see an upswing in scored calls. And as we continue to use Observe and we're a little more mature in our processes, we're able to leverage the analyze tool, the moments that Observe has to offer, and really pinpoint pain points for our agent so that we can take a step back, reflect, and maybe make things more streamlined so it's easier for the agent to ultimately deliver the best product possible to our guests.
Awesome. Let's talk about compliance. So, Christian, this one's for you. What do companies need to be thinking about in terms of compliance and how they're protecting data? So, what are the big concerns and what are the questions that we should be asking?
Yeah, compliance is a wide topic, and it can mean different things for different companies. If we look at it, let's think about it in a few different ways. From the agent side, are the agents following the right compliance guidelines? Are they verifying the customer in the right way? Are they reading out the right disclosure for the right type of sale or transaction that was made? And so, on that regard, Observe is transcribing and analyzing everything that was ever said, and it knows all the information about the customer. So if you need a certain disclosure read out on 100% of a certain type of call, it tracks that automatically. Um, Another way to think about compliance might be like, do the team leads or the supervisors, do they know who needs attention and coaching on the right things? And so again, same thing there. We can understand at what rate the different agents on the different teams are doing the right thing or going out of compliance. Like maybe they're offering a return when the customer reason shouldn't have given them that return. And then the third might be like data security. So now that whether they're working from home or in the office, there's no reason that anybody should have access to more data than they need to.
Yeah.
And like phone calls from a call center have credit cards, social securities, like every possible thing that you might not want people to have access to. And then now that you're analyzing it all and you now have that data at scale, it's even more sketchy.
Yeah.
And so what Observe is doing there is we've got some really smart machine learning engineers who have built this redaction technology that identifies was any PII or PCI data spoken on the call, and it automatically just strips it out from the audio and the transcript. So that data is just not even accessible for anybody. They can still do their QA, they can still listen to the things that they need to, but all that sensitive stuff that you don't want them to hear just is stripped away.
Brilliant. Hey, for our attendees, how are you handling compliance and protecting data for your customers? It's obviously extremely important. It's very sensitive. So I'd like to hear how our attendees are accomplishing that. And Christian, I got another one for you. We've talked about coaching, and another question for our attendees is, how are you even handling coaching? What does that look like? Is it manual? Is it scheduled? Can you do it on the fly? But Christian, to you, tell us about agent performance and coaching launch. Why is it important for companies to consider that? And how is it different from the other coaching solutions that are in the marketplace?
Yeah, the coaching is really where the tires hit the road. So there's some big stats out there on like what percent of data businesses actually use, and they're all really low numbers. And so what's happening now with coaching is all that data that Observe has about every call, which is what questions were asked, what was said, who did what. The solving the data problem, that's done. Now what we need to do is take that information and turn it into coaching to make the agents better and actually drive that performance that you want. Make them more empathetic, make them follow the right disclosures, make them do the upsell when you want them to. And so the way that coaching is being done now is that Observe is highlighting what things each individual agent is doing right and doing wrong. And it tells the supervisor and the team lead what exactly for that particular agent they should coach on. And it gives them examples. So when you deliver the coaching, you can say, hey, on 7% of calls, this was missed, and here's a few examples. But here's where you're doing it right and what we want you to do more of. And so this individual tailored coaching from Observe is making it number one so that the supervisors can deliver much more pointed feedback that's tailored specific to that agent. And so we're not doing this generic coaching. It's tailored for each individual agent.
I think that's the crucial aspect to really helping that agent be successful, is not just broad topics, but being very specific with what they need and enabling them to grow. We're almost out of time, but we want to jump in and run through some Q&A from the audience. So we're going to run through these really quickly. And we'll get some quick responses. I think most of these will be for Christian. So one question we have, and again, if you have more questions, please drop them in. We're going to pull the winner of the GoPro from these questions. So Christian, can ObserveAI immediately identify customer names and phone numbers?
Oh, 100%. So not only do we have all the data from the contact center and the recording solution, so we know caller ID, skill, what was said on the call, their name. We also can bring in things like CRM data. And so in addition to their name, phone number, account type, along with what they're asking and saying and doing on the calls.
Great. So your integrations allow you to scrape a CRM and pull that data and pop it for your agents. Fantastic. So next question, and I think I'm going to be able to answer this even though I'm not very smart. Does it have the option to schedule coaching sessions with agents? Yeah, it does. It's built into the tool. We just talked about it. So that's fantastic. And we just happened to cover that. Christian, any other content on that question?
Yeah, and not only does it schedule the coaching sessions, but it tells that supervisor or team lead what to talk to that agent about. So in the past, they had to go through and research, like they got to look through the QA scorecards and figure out what to talk about. You open up the coaching session, which it tells you to do, and then it tells you, here are the things you need to talk to the agent about. It makes their job so much easier.
Yeah, you're spot on. Does your product, ObserveAI, does the tool show a comparison of calls?
100%. So if you want to look at like what's driving top performing agents, bottom performing agents, what things are the different teams missing most frequently, one supervisor against another supervisor, which team is performing how, it absolutely does that. And you can pull out all the best and the worst.
Fantastic. We've talked about this. This is one of the statements from the Q&A. Everybody is experiencing challenges with decentralization and hybrid teams. And Dan, you spoke to this. You're trying to give some of that personality and create an environment that's engaging. Is ObserveAI helping you do that?
Yeah, for sure. I think just having what's the most important in continuing to coach and continuing to have that one-on-one is just to have data-driven results. And when we talk about the last point that Christian touched on with comparing calls and call comparison, having kind of that roadmap or format for your coaching through Observe, and having the different calls and what points in your call scoring guide are continually missed or continually hit, things that we can celebrate. Having that roadmap set up for you allows you to take a little more time and have that one-on-one, have that engagement that is really replacing that person to person. Going 100% in person to 100% remote is tough. And there's no direct answer as to what the best way to do that is. What works best for me is having that roadmap set up for coaching, going into the coaching and having that conversation because we have all the data and details in front of us.
Fantastic. Christian, this one's for you. Is there a support option so that we can modify employee behavior?
Yeah, so a few ways, depending on how that question is asked. So from the UI perspective, you can have different people able to access different things. Like if you want certain QAs to see only calls from certain skills or only certain types of calls, if you want agents to see their own activity, or if you want others to see information from the entire business or multiple clients, you can set it up however you want. But then from actually driving agent performance, there you have the pre-scheduled coaching, which tells the soup what to talk about. And then you have the leaderboard tab to show like how they're ranking on the different items that they care about against the rest of their team.
Excellent. What about reporting and KPIs? What do you have there?
Yeah, so basically like custom dashboards all the way that you want it. So it comes out of the box tracking like all the things that every standard contact center is going to care about. What's the sentiment of the customer? Is there a hold time violation? Are they reading out the right disclosures? Like all that bread and butter stuff comes right out of the box, but then you can customize it to anything that's particular to your business. So like Dan at City Cruises might be looking at, is it the dinner boat that's most common, and what are the complaint types around those? And so you can set up the dashboard to specifically look at items in your business as well.
Excellent. One question that we have is, does it create a history log per agent, and does it help find trends? And the answer is yes. So it can show you bottom performing, top performing agents, where they're struggling, and give suggestions of how you can help improve their performance and help coach them so that they can be successful. It's all tailor-made for that individual user. It's very specific, and that's what we find to be very helpful, and it helps your contact center grow. Christian, quality assurance, what do we do there?
Yeah, so in the old day, pre-Observe, your QA team would be like grabbing random call recordings out of that call recorder per agent per month, typically the short ones because they don't want to spend 30 minutes listening to a 30 minute long call. Now what you're doing is you select the items that you want to find on the call. Like, did they have a hold time violation because we want to reduce AHT? Yeah. Was there an upset customer because we want to improve CSAT? They open those calls, and then when they're looking at a call, they're not just listening and filling out a QA form. They jump around to the points of interest on the call because Observe tells them, here's where the negative sentiment happened. Here's where that verification happened. Here's where the customer mentioned their call reason. And so the QA can take this like 40-minute long call and just blast through it. It makes the workflow a lot easier, all in one single interface. They don't have to have multiple tools open either.
Yeah. So not only does it analyze 100% of calls, it makes that process automated. So you're not having to manually drag through listening to an entire call. It's so much faster. It really saves a ton of time, and that's where you're going to find the importance of the tool. Last question before we move on and conclude the webinar. Is there any option for performance evaluation for the team? Yes, absolutely. That is what the platform is built to do. It's going to evaluate 100% of your calls and your agent's performance, and it's going to give you the data and analytics that you need to make valuable decisions for your business to help it grow. So we're going to move on and conclude. If you'd like to schedule a demo to see more, and it would be extremely beneficial, you would love to take a look at this product, We believe in it. I think that it's going to help your business. If you'd like to schedule a demo, please shoot us an email at alliances@ObserveAI, or you can call us. And we're also going to share this information with you by email once the webinar concludes. So again, if you'd like to schedule a demo, please reach out to us, and we would love to set this up and work with your team. And we'd love to become your partners as we create an ongoing solution that helps you. We also have a report regarding contact centers and how it has changed in a post-pandemic world. You can download it. You also see the handout section here in the webinar platform, so you can learn more there. And we will also share this content by email once the webinar concludes. The raffle winner is Paul. Paul, I believe your name is Filio. We're going to reach out to you directly to get your contact information so that we can ship you that GoPro. We appreciate all of your feedback and your Q&A time. Paul, thank you so much. Your content was wonderful and great, and you're asking the exact kind of questions that we love to hear. That is right in our wheelhouse. We want to thank you again for your time. If you'd like to connect with us, you can follow us all on LinkedIn. Christian, Dan, myself. We'd love to connect with you so that we can bump up those followers and become real popular. So reach out to us on LinkedIn and make that connection. We'd love to hear more about your business and how we can assist. Again, thank you all so much for your time. We know that it means a lot to take 30 minutes out of your day, probably during your lunch hour, and we've all got webinar fatigue since the pandemic started, so I know how important it is, and I'm really, truly thankful that you made the time to be here. I hope that the feedback and comments that we were able to offer are beneficial to your business. I want to thank Christian for his time. Dan, thank you so much. It's so beneficial when we have an actual customer speak to the benefits of a tool and how it's helping their business grow. So thank you, both of you guys, for your time today.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Daniel, Christian, been a pleasure. Hope to hear from you all soon.
Awesome. Christian, don't cut that hair, and Dan, keep on rocking. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you'd like to schedule a demo, you can hit us at alliances@ObserveAI, and we would love to set this up. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to talking to you in the future. Thanks, guys.